Llame al 311 o visite.
This whole team do an extraordinary job serving the people of Brooklyn at this wonderful hospital. This hospital means so much to the surrounding communities. It has for years, but it was a particularly important anchor for this community in the days when Sandy hit and the days after, where there was such pain, so many challenges, so much unknown. This hospital was a beacon despite its own challenges. And, you know, the nurses, the doctors, all the staff got ready in anticipation of Sandy. They brought their overnight bags. They knew they were in for the long haul. They were ready to serve no matter what was thrown at them. This hospital lost power that night that Sandy hit, but it didn't lose a single patient. I want to emphasize that. It lost power, but it didn't lose a single patient, and that is a credit to all of the men and women who work at Coney Island Hospital. We want to today, in this process of talking about the good news, remember the really heroic efforts of the people who served at that time and since protecting the members of this community. A lot of folks are with us here today. I want to particularly thank Dr. Ram Raju, who you'll hear from in a moment. The president of the Health and Hospitals Corporation has done an extraordinary job making sure this hospital is getting stronger all the time. I want to thank Dan Zarilli, who's the director of our Office of Recovery and Resiliency, who's played a big role in making sure we get the resources we need going forward. And the elected officials you'll be hearing from in a moment who've been very, very supportive of all our efforts to help this hospital get stronger and to shore up this city in so many ways. Today's announcement is truly extraordinary for our hospitals, has tremendous meaning for the city of New York as a whole. This is resources that were deeply needed for Coney Island Hospital and 3 others. FEMA, to the great credit of FEMA, I'm going to talk to you in a moment about what Senator Schumer has done to encourage FEMA to be there for us, and his efforts have been Herculean as usual. But FEMA, I've got to tell you, someone asked me the other day how we felt as a city about our federal partners. FEMA has been an extraordinary partner, consistent and communicative and helpful in so many ways. FEMA is investing at least $1.6 billion. That's today's announcement, and it's a big one. FEMA will invest at least $1.6 billion to reimburse the Health and Hospitals Corporation for repairs already undertaken since Sandy, and to fund new projects to protect us against future storms. That's an extraordinary commitment by FEMA. It is, in fact, the second largest award in the history of FEMA. This is something that all New Yorkers should appreciate, how the federal government has stood up for us. The second largest award in the history of FEMA for our New York City public hospitals. This is going to support recovery and resiliency measures for the hospitals, the 4 hospitals that are included, of course, Coney Island, Metropolitan Hospital in East Harlem, Kohler Specialty Hospital in Roosevelt Island, and Bellevue Hospital in Manhattan. This money will allow us to do the kinds of things we know are necessary for resiliency, replace and improve generators and put them in safer positions, new pumps, flood-proof elevators, all the things that will allow our hospitals to keep going through thick and thin. All 4 hospitals will receive new flood walls, the most foundational type of protection. All 4 will get them. And Coney Island will get a new critical services building. So this is crucial to the future of these hospitals and their protection. Now, I mentioned Senator Schumer. He has been in the midst of everything that was thrown at the city and the state with Sandy, the worst natural disaster in the history of New York City. He has been a rock. He has been the leader of the efforts to make sure we had the resources we need, that we could fully recover. He has been absolutely unwilling to stop until everything we needed was in place. And that is a different kind of heroism. You know, I have immense respect for the doctors and the nurses and everyone at the front line in those days. That was incredibly tough, and they did an amazing job. It's a different kind of heroism to stick with it for 2 years and make sure that we get the resources we need. It is just as important and crucially important for the long run of our hospitals that we had a champion who was willing to be there and make sure we got what we needed. This is a crucial part of a bigger resiliency plan, also largely due to the work of Senator Schumer. Remember, $20 billion will be spent on resiliency over the coming years. Four big components, just to put it in perspective: the protecting of infrastructure and critical services. And one great example last month when the city committed $28 million to make Staten Island University Hospital more resilient. The strengthening of coastal defenses. Our partners, the Army Corps of Engineers, have been extraordinary. 670,000 cubic yards of sand on Coney Island beaches alone. They're doing other great work at beaches all over the city to make them stronger. The upgrading of buildings and the FEMA support we've gotten for key buildings around the city, including public housing, for example, the Coney Island houses, which we celebrated a few weeks back. And the effort to make homes and businesses and neighborhoods safer and more vibrant. You're going to see a lot of funding for resiliency technology that will benefit small businesses and help to protect them in the future. Altogether, $20 billion, 257 different initiatives, all being moved simultaneously. You see activity all over the city. You'll see it for years. And every year we are getting safer, and each year we will be safer than the year before. That's what it takes for the future of the city. And we have been able to do this because of the commitment of so many leaders and because of the hard work of so many people who serve our fellow New Yorkers. A quick word in Spanish before I turn to Senator Schumer. Hoy estamos anunciando que 4 hospitales de la ciudad de Nueva York recibirán un total de al menos 1.6 billones de dólares en fondos federales para recuperarse del huracán Sandy y prepararse para futuras tormentas. Esta inversión crucial ayudará a proteger las instituciones de primera clase en las que los neoyorquinos confían para mantenernos seguros y saludables. With that, I just want to say, whether you say it in English or whether you say it in Spanish, we have had a champion in Washington. Chuck Schumer has been so consistent in his support of this city and so able to get the job done time and time again. This grant, again, the second largest grant in the history of FEMA, is largely due to the leadership of our Senator, Chuck Schumer.
Thanks, Bill. Well, thank you, Mayor. And I'm so glad to be here. I have particular fondness for this area. I have represented Coney Island Hospital for 38 of the last 40 years, only during the redistricting, 1981-82 I didn't. It was in my assembly district, and then it was in my congressional district, and of course it's in my Senate district. Even more importantly, for decades my mother-in-law worked here as a clerical worker at Coney Island Hospital, a proud member of Arthur Cheliotis' CWA local, and she's passed on, but she had great times here and enjoyed working here. So it's great to be here. Now, first I want to thank the mayor for his great hard work on this issue. He's been just such an easy partner as we work hard to bring back dollars here. He knows he has the facts at his fingertips. He understands the practical realities of how to get things done, and it's truly been a pleasure. I want to thank the great staff. I'll get into them later at Coney Island Hospital, who do a great job. So, we're here at Coney Island Hospital to announce some big news for New York City's Health and Hospital Corporation. It is historic news, in fact. The mayor said this was the second largest grant. He's right. But that's only if you lump together the 1,000 schools of the Louisiana School District. This is the largest FEMA award to one place. It's the largest single upfront FEMA payment ever, and certainly the largest in New York City, the largest public assistance award. That's what FEMA is called when it gives money to government groups, in which HHC is one of. So it's the largest single award of its kind in history. And as the mayor outlined, the money is going to go towards Sandy repair work and mitigation projects at 4 hospitals, the 4 HHC hospitals impacted by Sandy: Coney Island, Bellevue, Metropolitan, and Roosevelt Island's Kohler Goldwater Specialty Hospital. We worked very hard with the city for HHC to receive this unprecedented $1.6 billion in federal funding, since even before they submitted their application to FEMA. The day has come. The check will soon be cut to this deserving institution. And not only has HHC now received more in this public assistance award than any other hospital system in Sandy recovery, they've received the largest such FEMA payment of the whole storm. And while that's a demonstration of the amount of damage done to these 4 hospitals, it's also a demonstration of the good that government can do when we all come together with our eye on the prize. I was proud to write the Sandy relief bill in a way that helped make this happen. You see, funding is being authorized for a new alternative procedures program, which provides a lump sum payment to Sandy damaged facilities instead of the typical incremental funding. They used to give it in little bits, and you couldn't really plan. Well, maybe we shouldn't plan a whole new emergency room if they're only giving us the first bit of $50 million when it costs $200 million. The lump sum actually saves money because you're not doing it piece by piece and allows for better and long-range planning. And that's how we restructured the bill. We looked at what was wrong in Katrina, and we changed it. And that's why it's working so much better here in New York with Sandy than it did with Katrina down there in Louisiana and Mississippi. The funding will go to 2 main categories of work: reimbursement for emergency repairs and work that was critically needed immediately following Sandy in order to get these life-saving facilities up and running as soon as possible. But just as important, future mitigation work. In the old days, Katrina, FEMA said you got to just build it back the way it was. Made no sense. As we've done with our subways, as we've done with our roads, as we've done with every part of Sandy, you can build it back better. More storm-resistant, more modern, better. So that's what's happening here. I was here at Coney Island Hospital shortly after the damage. You saw how devastating it was. It's amazing. Down there in Brighton Beach, where I spent many a happy childhood day, and I campaigned outside the Brighton Beach baths when I was 23. That's no longer there. The water came all the way up to here, way high up. Unbelievable. I couldn't believe it when I saw it with my own eyes. And now, if God forbid it comes again, this hospital won't get flooded. Not only that, it'll do a lot more. We'll have a new emergency room, which is great, so needed by the people of this area. The resiliency portion of FEMA allows that to do that. The old way of FEMA funding wouldn't have. So, the new emergency department here at Coney Island is something really big and really important. And it means we're a lot better off after FEMA after Sandy than we were before. A new resilient critical services building, an emergency department, vast amounts of medical equipment and medical services will make light years of difference for this diverse community here on the southern shorefront of Brooklyn. And by moving all this to the second floor, we're making sure, God forbid another flood comes, all this fancy machinery and everything else won't get flooded again. Amen. Very important. So this is great news for the patients, the employees, all of New York City. And it's why all that hard work we did on getting the Sandy bill passed is worth it. Public hospitals are so important. They provide critical medical services to millions of New Yorkers. They've been doing a great job handling the first case of Ebola in New York City. The HHC Union, Local 420 of DC 37, are dedicated as they come. The healthcare workers here are fabulous. I know them. I see them. They're just dedicated to their work. And, of course, it's critical that our public hospital system be as strong as possible during a flood. So, this is all great news. We were caught off guard after Sandy because we never had such a flood before. But we will take what we learned from that experience and build back better and stronger. Now, it's not just here at Coney Island. Bellevue, they were forced to evacuate 500 patients after Superstorm Sandy. Their basement was flooded with millions of gallons of water. The hospital faced damage to its electrical, water, and steam systems. Bellevue had to use backup generators to deal with power outages until those fuel pumps failed. and that left patients in dark rooms and hallways. That won't happen again at Bellevue. So, the damage here at Coney Island, as I said, was huge. Huge destruction. I was there. I saw it. The hospital 10-foot basement was flooded. The whole first floor was flooded. 200 patients had to be evacuated. When I toured this hospital with President Davilas, as I said, I was shocked. Hospital also had to depend on backup generators that were initially turned off for 5 hours. The emergency room couldn't provide necessary services. People had to be evacuated. And the other two hospitals, Metropolitan and Kohler Goldwater, were also affected to not as great an extent as Coney Island or Bellevue, but they will be brought up to resilience once again. In order to make sure that when there's another storm they can move forward, we will be protected. Now, HHC already received $200 million in repairs for emergency repairs to pump out the flooding and just get the hospitals going, the emergency generators. This is an additional $1.6 billion, and this allows us to start rebuilding. And it's worked very quickly. FEMA, HUD, HHC applied for this in April. We're announcing the grant today. That's pretty quick time for $1.6 billion, which is a whole lot of money by anybody's standards. Coney Island Hospital will receive 923 of this. It'll go, as I said, for all kinds of things. Bellevue 376, Metropolitan 120, Kohler 181. Bottom line, today's a banner day for New York City public hospitals and their physical and financial recovery from Superstorm Sandy. And it is so good for New Yorkers and Americans to see that all this money and all these taxpayer dollars are being put to good, efficient use that will make the lives of New Yorkers so much the better. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Senator. Now I want to introduce the president of the Health and Hospitals Corporation. I want to say about Ram Raju, he's doing an extraordinary job, and you can see, as the Senator mentioned, HHC's capacity is immense. You've gotten a real example of that over at Bellevue the last few weeks, and they deserve immense credit. Ram brings a special ability to the effort to help strengthen Coney Island Hospital because for years he was the COO and medical director of Coney Island Hospital. So this will be a special labor of love for him to assist the team here in his efforts to make this hospital even stronger. President Ram Raju.
Thank you. Thank you, Mayor. Good morning, Mr. Mayor, Senator Schumer, friends, colleagues, and of Coney Island Hospital, and also the Health and Hospital Corporation. We are here this morning to celebrate this milestone, this funding award from FEMA, which will permit restoration and fortification of the 4 of our hospitals that suffered damage during the Hurricane Sandy 2 years ago. When this hospital, which we are standing, Coney Island Hospital, were temporarily closed after Hurricane Sandy, it reminded all of us that hospitals are not just healthcare delivery systems. They are intertwined in the social fabric of the communities. They are social institutions in the communities we serve. When the public hospital closed, as did Coney Island and Bellevue, the community loss and suffering is far greater because we serve the most vulnerable amongst us, and we take good care of them. The federal funding marked here today, this morning, will assure that in the long term, never again we will face the circumstances of storm like Sandy without the structure designed to withstand the extraordinary climate so that we do not close our hospitals again. We would not have reached the day without the persistent, professional, and caring efforts of many, many, starting with our Senator Schumer, and our Mayor. I want to thank from the bottom of my heart. I wish to express my personal gratitude and the gratitude of the Health and Hospital Corporation to all those who worked very hard to bring us here today. I just want to name a few of them. Our team at the Health and Hospital Corporation has been deeply involved in the restoration and mitigation process and working with FEMA. Antonio Martin, our Executive Vice President, Marlene Zurak, and Fred Cavino from the finance team, who really shepherded and spearheaded this for countless days and nights, trying to get the numbers right. Audie Wagner, my friend, who heads Coney Hospital. Steve Alexander, who heads our Bellevue. Jeremy Berman, our legal counsel, who has been working with that. And John Levy from Base Tactical, who advised us throughout this process. Andrew Feeney and Chris Holmes at Department of Health of State of Emergency Management has been of immense help to us, and they were guiding us through the whole process. And I also want to take the opportunity to thank Brad Kaiserman, Chris Thomas, and Laura Phillips, people from FEMA, who has been extraordinarily helpful, and they were there throughout the time we were trying to negotiate this thing. Again, thank you for coming. Thanks the Senator and the Mayor for being here today at Coney Island Hospital. The future of New York City public health system, the largest and the oldest in the nation, will gain safety, security, protection from this protection because of the FEMA projects. So I just wanted at the end thank my staff, the resiliency and dedication of the staff who took this, which to this particular storm, and also able to put themselves, their own risk, their own health at risk, and their own homes at risk, but took care of the patients. And as the mayor rightly pointed out, transferred hundreds of patients without losing a single patient. He talks about the dedication of these workers, the resiliency of the team, and it just basically defines what we are meant as a public hospital system of great city in the country, New York City, and New York City Health and Hospital Corporation. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you. Thank you. As I said, our elected officials have been tremendous partners in all of our efforts to make sure we will be resilient going forward. I'd like you to hear from each of them. First, Borough President Eric Adams.
Thank you. Thank you. I see the senator as he rides through the borough on his bike. You know, the Hurricane Sandy clearly put all of our medical facilities on life support, and this grant will ensure that the resuscitation process continues. And although the storm may have flooded our buildings, it didn't drown our spirits. And that's the energy that New Yorkers and Americans will move forward to ensure that we rebuild, and we will rebuild better. And I think the senator pointed out very clearly the important distinction from previous rebuilding process. It's not just building it back the way it was, it's building it back stronger. And so we cannot thank the partnership on our federal level of having our senior senator realizing the imperativeness of rebuilding an important hospital like this, and the important task that the staff is doing here, as well as our local electeds, Councilman Chaim Deutsch and Councilman Mark Traeger. It is the coming together of all of those synergies led by the mayor of the city of New York, who's clearly understanding that our hospitals play a vital role, and it will continue to do so with these types of dollar allotments. Thank you very much. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you. Now, Chair of the City Council Committee on Recovery and Resiliency, Councilmember Mark Traeger.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I've always said that this unprecedented storm will require an unprecedented amount of cooperation between our federal, state, and local partners, and we're seeing that here again. Senator Schumer, you have been like a guardian angel to the state of New York, and you have delivered once again big time for the state and for our district here in southern Brooklyn. And I can tell you what a difference a new administration, a new council makes, that this announcement is happening this year. And Mr. Mayor de Blasio and your team, thank you for understanding the sense of urgency that our communities are still waiting 2 years to see more signs of progress. Borough President Adams, my colleague, Councilman Chaim Deutsch, HHC, this requires a team. I want to tell you that Coney Island Hospital here and all of our public hospitals, Sandy or not Sandy, have taken their hits. And this is a tremendous announcement to bolster up our critical public hospital facilities. I want to just remind us that when we make a pledge to make our communities whole again, that's not just, of course, our housing, both public and private, our small businesses, our infrastructure, but our hospitals as well. The Ida G. Israel Health Clinic in the west end of Coney Island, still down. And the residents there desperately need that clinic to be rebuilt. With this funds, that will happen. I cannot thank you enough from the bottom of my heart on behalf of our district for coming through for New York, for the city, and for Coney Island. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Man who has the honor of representing this district and this hospital, Councilmember Chaim Deutsch.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Mayor. It is critical, it was critical months following Hurricane Sandy that residents were transported and transferred to nearby hospitals. In a medical emergency, seconds can mean a difference between life and death. Now, fortunately, with Coney Island Hospital, nothing happened with all the transfers and all the transports that came in here. But this funding is really, really critical. And I really want to thank the Mayor de Blasio, and Senator Chuck Schumer. Welcome to your old district. Thank you. And for securing the substantial allocation that will strengthen Coney Island Hospital's infrastructure, making the hospital more resilient to future extreme weather, improving our healthcare system, and safeguarding vital patient care. Now, during Hurricane Sandy, I was a first responder, so I have seen firsthand how people suffered, how people were transported to other locations, other hospitals. So this hospital is very critical. And I shouldn't be saying this here in the hospital, but when I hear these accomplishments, it hits me in the heart. And, this is really moving forward. This is really strengthening our infrastructure, strengthening our healthcare system. So I want to say thank you. And now I'm going to say it in Spanish. Muchas gracias.
Excelente. Covering all the bases. Impressive, sir. The last speaker is someone that will be a treat for all of us because she was considered a very special presence in this community before Sandy. And I said to her when I came in the door, after Sandy, she became a legend. Because as the chief nurse for Coney Island, Terry Mancher had to marshal those forces to deal with something that literally, as the senator said, no one ever saw anything like this before. There was no drill for anything like this. It was unprecedented. But Terry Mancher led her troops into action, and every patient was safe, and she has an extraordinary team, but an extraordinary team requires a great leader. Chief Nurse, Terry Mancher.
Thank you. Thank you. That's hard to live up to, but I really do appreciate that. Thank you so much. Let me just say, I've been a nurse here at Coney Island Hospital for over 35 years. And the last 16 of the 35 years, I've had the honor to be a chief nursing executive here. And, with that job comes a lot of challenges. And some of the challenges is because of inclement weather. So we've had, storms. We've had snowstorms. I remember in all my years that I've been here, I had to travel in with snow up to here and ice. And we have our challenges, but never, ever did we have any challenge like we had with Sandy. And we were prepared. Don't get me wrong. We knew it was coming, and we were prepared. I told my staff, when you come in, just pack a bag. I didn't know how long you'd stay, but just pack a bag in case if you have to sleep over for the night. And they did. They always rise to the occasion, and they packed a bag. And I remember that evening, we were on the second floor right here in this building, and we were having dinner. And so it was kind of dark out, but we had a large TV screen in there, and we were watching the news on the TV. We were watching the rain coming down and the winds blowing, and I was having dinner with some of the nursing leaders. And we said, it's a big deal. It's just another storm. It's not going to be a big deal. And then all of a sudden, the lights started flickering on and off. And I said, oh, boy. Oh, my God. All right, everybody, get to your units. And we did. We all ran to the units. I pre-assigned the nursing leaders to be on every unit just in case if something happened. Well, something happened. I went to the 7th floor myself. That was in the Tower building. On the 7th floor, it was the intensive care units, and that's where we treat the sickest patients. On that unit, there were many patients that were on ventilators, respirators, where they couldn't breathe on their own and they were being ventilated by a machine. Every one of those patients had IV fluids going. Those IV fluids were either giving medications or fluids for the patients to live. So when I got up there, everything seemed to be okay. I checked the staffing, made sure that there was enough staff for all of the patients, and there were. we were okay as far as that's concerned. I went around, I made sure there was enough flashlights for the nurses in case something happened. I wanted to make sure there was portable suction just in case if anything happened. Staff was fine, everything was great. I went from the medical intensive care unit over to the other side to the surgical intensive care unit. Same thing, same check, we had the staff, everything was great. So we thought, okay, the worst of the storm is over. Then I remember, like it was a month ago, I remember seeing the emergency room nurses running with patients and stretches, and they were pushing all of these patients onto the units in the ICU. And I recognized the nurses. They were my emergency room nurses. And I was like, what's going on there? Miss Mancha, the water, it's up to here. I mean, you can see that the uniforms that they were wearing, they were soaking wet. And the water, they were all soaking wet, but they were pushing those patients in. We didn't really have room for them, but the nurses stayed with them in the hallway to take care of them. So there was a lot of confusion that night. It was hectic. It was kind of scary. But then all of a sudden, the lights went out. That was scary. Imagine being in intensive care unit or any place in a hospital where you have a lot of patients on machines, getting IV fluids, and it's pitch black. And I tell you, I mean pitch black. When we looked outside, there was no light whatsoever. There was no lights in apartment houses that we usually see, no street lights, no car lights. It was black. It was pitch black. And so, of course, I picked up the phone to find out from engineering what's going on, and there was no phone. There was no communication. There was nothing. It was like we were alone in an island all by ourselves, and we had to take care of the patients. It was a really, really scary night. But then we smelled fire. That was scary. I got to tell you, being there, even I was really scared, and I've been through a lot. But we smelled fire, and we didn't know where it was coming from. I didn't know. We had no phone. I couldn't find out where it was coming from. All of the patients that were able to speak, that weren't on a ventilator, were like, what's going on? What's going on? The nurses didn't know. Physicians didn't know. Nobody knew what was going on. I didn't know what was going on. I couldn't even ease their worries because I didn't know. Later, we found out that in the parking lot, a car short-circuited from all the water. So it was a big fire. And thank goodness we had a great engineering department who put that fire out. But could you imagine the fear that was going on, not only with the staff, but with the patients, too? It was really a horrific night. But when that happened with the fire, what I remember most, and I was standing right there as one nurse that went over to a patient that was on a ventilator and held that person's hand and said, don't worry about it. We know what we're doing. We can take charge here. Don't worry, everything's going to be okay. I got to tell you, after being here for over 35 years, that was the proudest day of my life. Just listening to my staff holding their hands, and they were freaking out themselves, don't get me wrong. They were because, first of all, they had families. Most of them lived right around this area. And when you lived around this area, you knew something was going on. But they had no clue of what was going on with their family. A lot of the young resident physicians, nurses, they have babies or children at home where they had babysitters. They had no clue. If the babysitter stayed with their children, they didn't know whether or not they ran home to be with their family. I mean, that stress that they had was just unbelievable. But yet, they stayed by our patient's side. It was one of the most horrific nights, and yet one of the most proudest nights for me as well. And then the next day, I remember we started our evacuation process. We had to get all the patients out because we had no support here. We didn't have anything. Everything was already flooded out, so we knew we had to get the patients out. We were prepared because we actually did evacuate before because of Irene. So we put little packets together with the patient's belongings. We had their transfer summaries. We even gave some medications. And it went with the patient to the other receiving hospital. So everybody knew what was going on. And that went well. As the mayor said and as the senator said, we didn't lose anybody. And that is in itself amazing. And nobody got sicker because of it either. So that's something else that we were extremely proud of. But when I think about now that the staff will never have to go through this again. The patients in our community, our community will never have to worry about another hurricane here because of this building. This is probably, after all my years of being here, this is the best gift that you all can do for me, and I really appreciate this more than ever, as the community does and as our patients do. So I just want to thank you, Senator, so much for your fighting. Thank you, Mayor. You were great. Dr. Raju, the best president ever, and my boss, Artie, for fighting. I think it was just such a great team effort, and I thank you for the community, for my staff, and for me, too.
Thank you.
So thank you so much.
Well done.
Thank you.
All right, we're going to take questions about this announcement, then we'll go to off-topic after. About this announcement. Josh.
I guess I wondered if there's anything more that you're looking to do that would require authorization from Congress when it comes to Sandy, and whether that's impacted at all by the change in power in the Senate.
You know, we knew that that we should get everything we could up front, because that was, again, the experience of Katrina. When they didn't get everything up front in the immediate aftermath of Katrina, they got what they needed, but then afterwards it was much harder. So we actually, when we came up with the $60 billion, it was a complete list. Now, could something new come up that we don't know about? Yes, but that's not on the table.
Just to follow up on that question for Senator Schumer, can you just speak, generally speaking, moving forward, how you think the Democrats' diminished power in Congress is going to affect?
Let's stay on topic. On topic first.
All right, we can go to
I thought that was kind of clear, my friend. On topic. It's not related. On topic.
How high did the water come here?
10 feet. 10 feet.
The exact, how do you want to describe where the water was? Use this
Went
room
up
as
to
an
the first
example.
floor.
Basically, the basement was filled and probably up to 18 inches to 2 feet along the first floor that you're sitting here. This was underwater. We had emergency service units come up with a boat to the front door of the hospital with some patients during the storm.
Is there a way to kind of roughly say how much of this money is to reimburse repairs already done and what percentage is things yet to come?
Roughly $65 million for work that's already been done, the emergency generators that have been put in place and other measures, flood walls at Bellevue and other things. And then the rest is going to be building new facilities here at Bellevue and the other 3 hospitals.
Yeah.
Can you explain what commitment means and when the money will come and what needs to happen before the money comes?
The actual process of getting the money?
Well, it's just a commitment, yeah.
The way it works is that they have approved our projects, they approved our money. It has got to go through appropriation through Congress, but we are trying to get some conditional approvals so that we can start the project with architectural as well as planning before that.
How long will that process take?
Yeah, it is. No, it doesn't. No, it probably takes anywhere between 6 to 9 months.
Yeah, let me just say, it is not appropriations through Congress. It's been already appropriated. They just have to give official notice when they send the money out to the appropriations committees. Just want to make that clear.
Senator, just to make clear, Senator Schumer, what impact, so you're saying that there'll be no impact on the Republican landslide on federal relief money coming into New York for Sandy recovery in terms of these hospitals. So at this point, all the money's set, all for the Sandy
Correct.
recovery for this, they can't touch it.
We didn't think of elections. We just thought of the fact that if we were going to do this in pieces, we would get less money as the immediacy of Sandy wore off. So we asked for everything we thought. We asked the governors, the mayor, and everybody.
Your attention, please. Pediatric medical code team, please report to the ER.
Oh, I have to go. So we asked for everything we thought we needed, and so far, so good. We haven't had to even think of going back.
So there's nothing that can be done by the Republican leadership to change that going
That's
forward.
right. That money is already allocated.
And just to put a point on it, because the senator, to his credit, both fought for the amount that was actually needed, because Lord knows there were people in Washington trying to lowball New York City, New York State, New Jersey, and the senator fought for the actual amount needed to get us back and get us strong. That's what got baked in. That $20 billion in resiliency money is an act of law. And then you remember all the announcements we made along the way. The 3 tranches of HUD funding, all announced, locked down. The FEMA awards announced and locked down. That's all moving. So we don't have a crystal ball, but I can tell you the senator's approach, which is aggressive and fighting for every dime we need, has given us a situation where that money is now definitely
Some
moving.
of our Republican colleagues said, let's do it in pieces. You need 60, we'll give you 10, 15 now, and let's see what you need later. We resisted that successfully.
Amen. On topic. Going once. On topic. Yes, Rich.
This may be a goofy question, but does the money actually come in a check, or does it go like electronically into a computer? How does it? Does anybody really?
It's a really big check.
Publishers Clearinghouse.
Comes in singles.
Yeah, right. You go to the bank. It's a stack of singles.
No, it comes as transfers through from the federal government to our OMB here in the city. Yes, that's right.
Electronic. Okay, last call. On topic. Going once. Going twice. Gone off topic.
Just a few here, guys.
Just a few. We'll go. Okay, these I got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Let's go.
Two-part question for Senator Schumer. One, do you expect the Democrats to recapture the majority in 2016? And two, do you feel like the governor did enough to elect a Democratic state Senate here?
Okay, well, let me answer both. First, look, the number one issue affecting our country and our state is that middle-class incomes are declining, that middle-class folks feel that the future is not as bright as they used to feel, and that since 2001, actually, the actual income that the average family makes in America and in New York has declined. And so the party that best answers that question will win in 2016. I believe it will be the Democrats. Second question, yeah, the governor endorsed the Senate candidates. The state party gave money to the Senate candidates, and I have no problems with the governor's action at the state or federal level.
Mayor and certainly Senator Schumer, your thoughts on the possibility that the president's going to take executive action on immigration, whether that's a wise idea, especially yesterday we heard from McConnell kind of fire a warning shot saying you better not do that because that's going to set a bad precedent.
You start off.
Okay. Well, the real answer here is to pass our immigration bill, which passed the Senate with strong bipartisan majorities. It did all the things that our colleagues are asking for it done in that bill. They say toughen up the border. That bill provided in a Hoeven-Corker amendment enough money to put someone on the border every half mile from Galveston, Texas to San Diego, California, 24/7. It provided an electronic fence. It provided drones. Yeah, the border isn't fixed, but it's because the bill that we passed was blocked by House Republicans. So the bottom line is, you know, if they want to pass that bill quickly, that would solve the problem. It's bipartisan. It has the support of business groups. It has the support of high tech. It has the support of the evangelical churches, the whole Republican coalition. But given that they've blocked it, I think that the president has no choice but to take executive action where he can, which is legal, wherever it's legally allowed, to help reform the immigration system. We cannot put up with this constant obstruction. We need to fix our broken immigration system.
Just a quick follow-on. It is incredibly broken. It has been for years. It's time for action. I think the senator has exactly right. Republicans are ready to pass a bill. Great. If not, the president must act.
Yes. Mr. Mayor, 25-mile-an-hour speed limit starts tomorrow.
Mm-hmm.
So how are you convincing people to adhere, or is enforcement in place? I know the signs are going up. What's the...
It'll be phased in. I mean, look, there's certain roads and highways where the 25-mile-an-hour limit does not apply. It's the quote-unquote default speed limit. It means in the absence of a different limit being noted, 25 is the limit. We'll be doing a lot of public education over the coming months. We'll be doing a lot of warnings, obviously enforcement over time. But I'll tell you, I think there's a real consensus in this town that we need to have people drive more carefully, more safely, and slower for the protection of our kids, our seniors. I've been very, very pleased with the response to Vision Zero. And by the way, the last I checked a few days ago, 24 fewer pedestrian fatalities than last year. Vision Zero's just gotten started, but already 24 fewer pedestrian fatalities than last year. That's real progress. So I think people will embrace it.
Mayor, do you
Do 1, 2, 3.
You've had some of the people in rival cities saying that after these election results, it's not a good idea to have the DNC in New York because, you know, it's more liberal and the Democrats need to be, you know, more inclusive of swing states. Do you think that these results will affect your chances?
No, I don't at all. I think the Democratic National Committee is trying to figure out where they can have the best convention, you know, the best security, the best resources, the best logistics, and the best place to have a platform to get their message out. There's no question in my mind that's New York City. We are in a position to provide them with everything they need, and I think that's what will win the day.
Dr. Raju, what's the latest on Dr. Spencer, and how close is he to a full 100% recovery?
He continues to be stable and making good progress, and hopefully he will be able to come off the isolation soon. So we will let you know as this evolves.
Last call, guys. Senator Schumer, going forward, how do you think the Democrats' diminished power in Congress is going to affect New Yorkers?
Well, look, we've always tried to work in the Senate. You have to work in a bipartisan way, unless one side has 60 votes. I've been able to pass some of the pieces of legislation I'm proudest of when we were in the minority. The bill that gives every family, middle-class, poor family, $2,500 off on their taxes each year to defer the cost of tuition was passed when we were in the minority. It was my legislation. The bill that allowed generic drugs to be more freely offered to people, saving billions and billions of dollars, saving the HHC a whole lot of money, passed when we were in the minority. So I'm going to keep working in a bipartisan way, and I think that in the Senate, I'm hopeful that the new Republican leadership will want to work in a bipartisan way. I think they've said that that's what their intention is, and so I think we can make good progress.
Do you think it's a problem for you?
Well, again, we've been able to get lots of things done. The original Sandy legislation was passed when we were in a slight majority, but carrying it through over the years. The original 9/11 legislation, the $20 billion, was passed when we were in a slight majority, but we had to get all that money allocated and changed around when we were in the minority, and it worked out very well.
Amen. Thanks, everyone. Thank you.
Yeah.